You guys have got me early this morning. I still got bedhead. I just got in from watering the garden and recording a bunch of garden blog stuff. And this had been in my feed since last night. I wanted to cover this first thing this morning. It is now 7 a.m. on the 28th of May, 2023. Um, Lucasfilm, StarWars.com, has been producing a ton of content around the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. This has been going on for a few days now, about a week. So it arrived in theaters on May 25th. Today's the 28th, so it's just hit its 40th anniversary. But they've been doing promo for a few days. If you go to the bottom of this, in fact, you'll see, and RIP to Ray Stevenson. But they've been pushing out these Jedi at 40 articles now for a while. So we've got deleted scenes from Return of the Jedi, Strangest and Deadliest Denizens of Jabba's Palace, um, best quotes, fashion. It's Leia concepts, Jedi at 40, the film itself, a review sort of. Isle legend Thomas G. Smith on the making of, and Ben Burt and Randy Thom on crafting Ewokies, Jabba's voice, and etc. So there's just tons of really, really awesome information that's coming out. And a lot of it, some of us have probably seen over the years in various Star Wars specials that we've watched. If you've ever watched any of like the behind the scenes documentaries, this is the kind of stuff that's in there. But since I was a kid, I have been fascinated with how of movie making, like movie making magic. We've been talking about this a lot, kind of not in secret, but behind closed doors, and like with my Starfinder group and private members and stuff, and my brother. There's this idea that for me personally, kind of like the last thing I've worked very hard in my life to do the things that I want to do. I don't want to use the word blessed because that's not true. I have busted my ass to get the things I want in life, but I have been able to do pretty much all of the things I wanted to do in life, despite some pretty severe, you know, uh, handicaps along the way, in terms of things blocking me. But managing to get there no matter what. And one of the last things left for me to do, yeah, I'm totally tooting my own horn there, guys. Sorry, I got off on a tangent. Um, I love movie making and I've been thinking about it recently. Like the last thing left for me is to work on some form of film, whether it's a short film, TV show, um, a Hollywood. I don't really care. It's just I want to be involved in the making of some form of media production that goes on air in front of people. And I don't care in what capacity. Like, so the obvious place for me to start would be screenwriting because I have, 15 years as a writer under my belt now. So I think this summer I'm starting to dabble a little bit into screenplay writing. But this is the kind of stuff that is fascinating to me since I was a kid. And like watching the behind the scenes things with Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings films. It was a brilliant move on his part to document everything. Brilliant move on George Lucas's part to document everything. And this article goes into the Rancor pit with Dennis Muren and Phil Tippett. And these guys, like some of the stuff they've done over the years, one of the things that fascinated me about like behind the scenes documentaries on the making of the Star Wars films, there's a video clip out there from one of the documentaries where they talk about the airbrushing and everything, all the details they're doing in terms of putting lights and all this stuff on the this cargo ship that's flying out of Hoth during the Empire Strikes Back opening scenes when the Empire shows up and they're bombarding the planet and they're shooting the ion cannons back to, let some of their guys escape. Um, those are all shots that have to be done with a close-up camera. And so those painted little miniatures have to be immaculate to hold up under the microscopic, you know, effects of that lens as it goes by. And because you're going to be watching that blown up to here, it's not going to be this tiny little miniature. It's expanded out, 1,000 times bigger or whatever it is. The amount of craftsmanship that goes into this kind of stuff is what has fascinated me for years. And so anytime I see anything that comes up that talks about the way they did like the stop motion photography and taking things from concept to finished project. I mean, I've been doing this in game dev now for, close to a decade where we take, napkin sketches all the way out to a finished concept. And so I've been doing all of these things just not in a film setting. So it's really cool to me to see how to get better at all these things. And so I love watching documentaries and looking at stuff like this, especially for my favorite films over the years. Um, and this is cool. They ask Phil, is like, before George gets there to look at your designs, did you have an overarching vision for what you wanted out of that menagerie at the outset? And he goes, nope, I really do. This is Phil Tippett. He's like, my process was I'll sit down and see what happens. Sometimes I do a sketch. I don't recall doing a sketch for any of these, but then I'd kind of make a little wire armature and then just start throwing Sculpey on it and bake it and paint it and bring it in. I learned from working with George previously that he didn't like horror stuff. He was a big fan of Jim Henson. So he says I could do either way. I could do horror or more realistic stuff. And I always like to imbue what I do with a bit of humor or history. Um, so just going in and making things. I remember George Lucas, one of the documentaries. They talked about he had like a 3 second process. He would, walk into a room, and there would be, 150 pieces of concept art on the wall or 150 sculptures laid out in front of him, and he would just go, "Yep, nope, nope, yep, yep." And then they would take all the yeps, put them together, take all the nopes, get rid of them. And we'd come back in and spend a little more time on those yeps and kind of see if it can't be fleshed out more or if it's a no. But it's a really cool process of just when you have a mountain of information. It's just kind of one of those things where it's like he kind of had an unlimited budget to a degree making the Star Wars films after the first one because his teams were allowed to just go crazy creatively. And I think that's really cool to just let your guys create a ton of things. Maybe 30% of those see actual production, but giving your concept art team plenty of room to run, I think is very, very important to get a lot of really cool ideas back that you can then sift through for your storyboarding and finished process. Um, Really cool. Um, so going into the Rancor sequence here, talking about how it was originally supposed to be filmed, with a guy inside a suit, and that wasn't going to work out, so they went to the stop motion, claymation type rig. But just this is it. I mean, this is the size of everything that they're doing, and it's just really really cool. Um, it's a combination. This is cool, but ultimately, this is not. It didn't get used, But I think it looks cool as hell to see this kind of stuff because it shows what they were practicing, what they were attempting to do before it moved to claymation. Anyway, really cool stuff here, and working with a pretty big budget, they can do the things they want. They also talk about how it says um, they also did for those of you who don't know, Dragon Slayer is a film. I think it's an under known film. It's not Dragon Slayer is a great film, and ILM did all the effects on that, and that dragon is so cool looking for its time. Um, Man, that's a good film. They also talk about in this article they had a moment where they had both the puppets in the in the in the warehouse at the same time, and so they set up a mock battle between the dragon and the Rancor and took photos of it and stuff just for fun. I think that's those little things like this that are really really cool. But I love watching all of this stuff come to life. Um, I wish more filmmakers would dedicate the time to showing how they did it. Um, because I think that there's a lot of people out there. I mean, I think Peter Jackson's extended editions when they first launched did a good job of showing people that the hunger was there way beyond just George Lucas, because George Lucas had always had a pretty big fan base that would consume all the documentary stuffs. But I don't think any other film to that date had really come out and said, well, we're also going to document everything equally. I think by most studios it was seen as sort of a, maybe we'll do a director's cut where we'll get the director to come in and do some, overdub. And this is what we were doing during this scene. I remember that we did this, that, and the other. And it's like, no, no, when you document all of it, you don't have to remember it's there. Um, I think Peter Jackson's took it a step further because he was also, up close and personal with the actors during the whole production. I don't think that's something George Lucas had ever done as much. Like it was more on the craft of movie making, the craft of filmmaking, the documentation of that process, as opposed to a lot of stuff that included the actors. There's definitely stuff in there with Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher and Luke and stuff, but I feel like there's way more in Peter Jackson's, which makes it feel more personal to the viewer. Um, but just I think this is also what established Lucasfilm, as being capable of doing the documentary styles whenever they did the stuff for Indiana Jones and then sold that to the History Channel. They did what, 94 episodes, like this is a crew that, had already been making documentaries for many, many years just about different subjects. So really cool and fascinating stuff if you like Star Wars and the, I think the prop making and movie crafting components. Um, Anyway, I hope to be getting deeper into this as I advance into the next stage of my life. I'm mid 40s at this point. Close. I'm 43 right now. We have our homestead. The YouTube channel is growing very well, and I'm starting to look at like what's the next creative challenge for me. I do think it's going to be attempting to do a screenplay of some type. I was talking about this with our Starfinder group the other day, and with Bubbalonia, and he had mentioned, you're already doing all these things. It seems like a natural progression. I'm like, I hadn't thought about that before. I hadn't thought about doing my own thing, um, making an independent film, even if it's an animated feature, because the tools are there these days. If you want to, especially with AI now, but like even with like Unreal 5, you can go in and a lot of the stuff that they used to have to do by hand, you can go into Unreal 5 or Unity, but I think Unreal's got a better store. You can buy an avatar that's already got the wireframe in it, and it's already got animations pre-baked or that come in a package that you could just attach to that wireframe, and it'll do different things based on you telling it to do these things. Walk here, jump in the air here, reach forward and grab that thing off the table there. Do a little dance, like all these things that you can just use sliders and options now to click through. And back then they had to build it all by hand. And obviously you could still do practical effects, but for a guy like me, I mean, you could sit in your home office with Unreal 5 and do crazy stuff. And you buy some, you know, there are even these pre-built scenes that come out occasionally. I think the big one for like Unity at one point was this big Viking scene. You can literally take that, put an avatar in it, and then make a short film within that set and not even need to build the set. It could just be set within, this Viking settlement that, from depending on how you film your angles and everything, um, no one's ever going to know that it's actually a pack. You know what I mean? It's just like depends on camera angles and stuff. There was a fun interview I read the other night about guys who took a bunch of old. One of their jobs was working on low budget movies, and they would take a bunch of stock war footage of like, let's blow up that tank, like fake, not real war footage, but like fake war films. Blow up that tank, guys shooting here, guys shooting here, guy throwing a grenade here. And they would take all these scenes, all these shots, and they would splice them together in lots of different ways and reuse that footage over and over and over in lots of different film productions, um, to make a different movie out of the same stock footage. There's some crazy creative things that people do, beyond just building models and stuff. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'm 13 minutes in. I love talking about movie craft and miniature craft in particular. I need to. I need to do a video for you all about my love of Jim Henson and the creatures and watching how that's evolved. Like if you haven't seen the most recent Netflix, man, I don't want to go into here. This will turn into a 30-minute video. So, the Age of Resistance, Dark Crystal film, go watch it. It's a combination of all sorts of amazing things. Anyway, may the force be with you. I'll see everybody next time. Stay tuned, like, subscribe, hit that bell icon, everybody. Cheers.